We are now live. Woohoo! Awesome. Thank you so much, Larry, for joining me this morning and being my guest for our October Carroll County Champions meeting. So I'm very honored to have you today.
Well, it's an honor to be here, Haley, and I really appreciate you inviting me to be a part of this group and speak today. I guess you talked to me earlier this week,
Yeah.
and we've been trying to put some information together that will be helpful, hopefully, for those that are viewing.
Yep, absolutely. So we're going to give Facebook just a couple seconds to kind of filter over to be live. It will let people know that we are officially live and that we've started. It'll give viewers a chance to hop on and let us know that they can see and hear us. Otherwise, we'd just be talking to ourselves, and we don't want that.
It's just the two of us, Haley.
We can pretend.
That's right. There's a big world.
So everybody out there watching, please let us know that you can see and hear us. And I will get started with some introductions, and then we'll let Larry kind of take it away. He has a long list of amazing things that, like hats, different hats that he wears, and just things that he's passionate about and involved in. And I just wanted to take a second to talk about a couple of those things. So Larry and I met, gosh, it's been years ago, but
Yes.
he has been a pertinent part of many of the organizations that I've been involved with. And I think that he's a great advocate for suicide prevention. So he is a certified QPR, which stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer, suicide prevention gatekeeper trainer. He's expanded over the years into mental health, survivors of suicide attempt, and survivors of suicide loss. And he is still the vice chair today. That is the logo that you'll see up in the corner of the screen. He's the vice chair of the Kentucky Suicide Prevention Group, Inc., and he is the founder and co-facilitator of the Christian Survivors of Suicide Support Group at the First Church of Christ in Burlington. And he's also a co-facilitator of a bereavement support group called Grief Share at the church as well. So as you can see, Larry is just the jack of all trades, and he wears so many hats, and we're so grateful to have him on today. So thanks again, Larry. And I'm just going to host the meeting, kind of keep us on track. My name is Haley Franklin. For those of you that do not know, I am the chair of Champions for a Drug-Free Carroll County, and I'm honored to be part of this program. We do have some people that have kind of started coming into the meeting. So hello, everybody. Hi, Betty and Nicole from North Key. Hi, Kathy. She's our treasurer that's been with us since the very beginning. We are so glad that you guys are tuning in today, and we're excited to get some of this information out to you. Hi, Casey. Casey is from Three Rivers District Health Department, and she can see and hear us, so that's good. Thank you guys for joining and tuning in to our virtual meeting. We very much appreciate it. Hi, Carly. Carly's from North Key as well. Speaking of North Key, we just gave out some of our very last lock boxes that we were given to North Key with some funds that they disseminated to us. So we're very happy to give that to the community members. And we're dwindling down. I think we have about 10 left. So if anybody's interested in those, reach out to me and I'll get those for you. All right, Larry, we are going to talk here for about 25 minutes or so, give or take a few minutes. So I'm going to let Larry kind of take it away. And if you guys have questions as we go along, please ask them in the comment section below. Okay? Thanks, Larry.
Well, thank you, Haley. This is going to be very informal. So just kind of relax, tune in with us. Feel free to take part, as Haley had mentioned. I think this is a time that we can interact some during this 25 minutes or so that I have in speaking, because if you haven't heard yet, we have a pandemic going on. And during this pandemic, we have seen so much chaos, uncertainty, and we have really struggled in many ways on how to work our way through this pandemic. So today, what I would like to do is go through some of the things that we're struggling with, some of the reminders of what life was like at the beginning of 2020. It's been only 7 months that we've been into this pandemic. I know it's hard to believe,
It is.
but at the same time, 7 months of all this uncertainty, always listening to what the latest information is for Kentucky, especially for our communities, Carrollton, here in Burlington, where I live. We're always looking to say, are we in the orange zone? Are we red zone? What kind of a zone are we right now with the COVID-19 cases? So what we're looking at is that we are actually experiencing a couple of pandemics in one. We have COVID-19 with the virus itself that's affected our whole world. But another pandemic that we're hearing some about, but still much more needs to be brought up, mentioned, and discussed on how we can help those that are struggling with that part of the pandemic, and that is our mental health. Our mental health has been hit hard during this pandemic. And so what I'm going to do is kind of share a little bit about what was happening prior to the pandemic with me, that what happened so quickly as it progressed to the point that we have to work from home. And we're doing these virtual meetings quite often.
Yes.
It seems like everybody we meet now, for the most part, if we're conversating, is through some type of virtual meeting. And so when I think back to 2020, one of the things I remember coming into this year was 2020, I work with the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation Blind Services. So when we think 2020, we think the ideal vision is 2020. We can see perfectly, even though you can see a little bit better technically, but for the most part, what is considered the best vision is 2020. So going into this year, there was a lot of play on those numbers and how we can implement those in presentations and just really encourage people to really get a vision for what 2020 has in store and what we can accomplish. So I think back to February. Back in February, we were putting together our third annual Youth Mental Health Summit here in Boone County with the Boone County schools, and it was open for all the surrounding area and anybody that wanted to come to this summit. We had three very good keynote speakers, people that really was able to reach our audience in a way that is very unique, from substance abuse with one speaker to two individuals that attempted to take their life by suicide. And so when we saw this summit, we had such high hopes of what 2020 had in store as we moved forward from what we had gathered from this summit and what we could do throughout the rest of the year. The following weekend, I was at another conference down at Berea. Down at Berea College, we had the first experience of where a college in-state had to shut down. And right around that time, I was at the Boone Tavern on the campus of Berea College, and we were seeing in this conference a little bit of information was starting to go out about this virus, coronavirus, that none of us really knew about.
Yeah.
The following week, however, we went into the autism conference in Louisville. We had a large number of people that didn't attend that conference because they were starting to be in fear of what this coronavirus was and how it was going to affect us. It was a great conference. Unfortunately, not a lot of people were there to get that information on how to work with those individuals that struggle with autism. And so with what happened at that point, we just saw that March really opened a floodgate for us. And when we looked at that, we started saying, what is true? What is myth? Do we know anything? How do we react? And during this course, we saw that we had a lot of uncertainty on how to approach it. And for many people that were already dealing with mental health struggles, with depression, anxiety, bipolar, other mental health disorders, we saw that we were in a time that we it added to what we were going through. So with that being the case, we saw that 2020 quickly started becoming, I see clearly that things are very uncertain. And that is kind of where we're at right now, 7 months later. And when we look at that, we need to look at some of the things that is going on in our society right now when it comes to suicide prevention that I am so proactive in, and how it is affecting us right here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Since the pandemic, we have seen some numbers that we have never seen before. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255, had seen an increase at times that were 600 times more people were calling that lifeline. They were getting swamped. That number, you're saying, wow, how do they have the capacity to handle such an outreach of people needing help?
Did they have enough people to take care of that?
Unfortunately, there is a process with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. When you call, a certain percentage of those are answered right here within the Commonwealth. But there's also a number of those that call that will get someone outside of Kentucky, not as knowledgeable maybe as what we have here in Kentucky if someone was to call. We're working on some of that with the local mental health coordinators, and they're at Three Rivers, up here at North Key. They're working together on how we can become those connectors during this time, during this crisis. So people, when they call, they will be able to talk to someone within our own communities that can get them the help right there where they're at. Up here in Northern Kentucky, I always say to those that are thinking about suicide, if you have a suicidal ideation, that suicidal thoughts, and you know you need help, there is Sun Behavioral up here in Erlanger, Kentucky, that has a big facility right next to the interstate on Interstate 75. I always say they have a crisis unit that someone can go there if they are suicidal. But if you've already attempted, St. Elizabeth emergency room is probably where you want them to go to make sure they get checked out and that they're going to be able to survive that attempt and be able to recover. And then next steps can be planned. So during this time, we are put in a situation where we really have to look and say, what are the resources? If something was to happen in Carroll County, do you know how you would reach out to someone? If you come across someone that may be suicidal, if you come across someone that's going through a mental health crisis, and excuse me, I'm really thankful that Haley is so knowledgeable on what's going on in Carroll County. She really has her hands and feet involved in everything around there. So she has been a ball of energy that really has helped so many people to be able to get connected with the resources that they need. And right now we're at a time that we need to know these things prior to talking to someone that may be thinking about ending their life, saying, I can't take any more of this. It's just too much. There is too much stress. There's too much fear. And I think when we look at that, we have to realize that some other things that are happening during this pandemic. Just this morning, I was hearing that right now, 75% of our country is experiencing an uptake, a spike in COVID-19 cases. We're seeing it go up again. Right here in Kentucky, our numbers are going up. It's not quite as high as it is in some states that are dealing with having 15% or higher positivity rate. That makes it to where really every state will say, here's a state that you cannot go to unless when you come back that you have to be quarantined for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being the case, there are some states that we have to keep an eye on that's around us that are around that 15%. Indiana recently had that. Missouri had it. So we see that there are states that we have to be careful when we do travel. But when we also look at some of the other things that's been going on during this pandemic, we have to look at some of the things like, is there a higher attempt rate during this time?
I'm sure.
How many people are sitting at home alone?
Yeah.
They're isolated. And I think that's something that, yes, go ahead, Haley.
I've heard stories and some people joke about this stuff, but they're stuck in their house. They're with their kids that they probably aren't normally with 24/7, because they're homeschooling and their husbands are home now and they're just with all their family that they're not normally on a day-to-day basis. And they're just like ready to pull their hair out. And it's crazy, the stuff that people are going through right now. Seriously.
And that is so true across the board. We're seeing a lot of people saying, I just feel like I'm in this bubble all by myself in my household. And I'm always wondering, okay, I want to go out and eat tonight. I want to eat at this restaurant or that restaurant. Is it okay for me to do that? And we have to question every decision we make on whether or not we're going to feel safe going there. And if we're going to be prepared, wear your mask. Wearing that mask is just something that we hear constantly. We have to say, all right, okay, I've heard it enough. I've heard enough people say we need to wear our mask. We need to be distant between each other. Outside of our own household, when we're interacting with someone, keep your distance a little bit. Keep that 6 feet, or they're even saying, if possible, a little further away from each other, especially when you're indoors. And so when we look at all of this, we're constantly keeping that in the back of our mind. And it's really weighing on us mentally. It is affecting us with being very depressed. We have went past the 6-month period that a lot of times we experience symptoms that it go for 6 months. It can become a condition. It can be a disorder. And because it's been going on for a while within you. And that's the thing that we have to realize, is that people in our own communities are at a point that they could be on that little edge of saying, I don't know how much longer I can go through with this. And I've heard some people, go ahead.
No,
you saying something?
I agree. Yeah.
Some of our well-distinguished individuals that have places of leadership, owners of big businesses, they're living in those same fears. Many of them are struggling. And how do I navigate this each and every day? So when we look at this, one of the things I thought was surprising when it comes to suicides during this pandemic time, we are actually 19% below last year's number.
That's the problem.
So when people look at that number, just know that it's really not that surprising, because if you've been through suicide prevention trainings, you realize that in time of war and crisis, suicide rates do tend to go down, because we're trying to figure out how to just go with the flow of what we're being told we need to do. And sometimes that number can go down because we're focused on so many other things. But around a 12-month to 18-month period, with all the mental health disorders, with all the struggle we're going through with the fears, we start realizing that that plays a part on what happens in another year because of this pandemic. We are in fear as, I guess, experts or people in the mental health field that says, what are we going to see when it comes to suicide come 12 months to 18 months after this pandemic starts lifting to where there is a vaccine and there's effective treatment, we're able to get the help that we need if we become exposed to COVID-19. So I think that's another thing that we have to keep in mind, is that even though the suicide rates are down, if you were looking at the numbers, don't be deceived in thinking, oh, things are going okay. We're handling this fairly well. As I said earlier with the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, it has expanded greatly during this time that people are needing to call that line. There is another method that is a crisis text line that you can put in a keyword like home, start, and then take that keyword and text it to 741-741 to get text help. If you are thinking about that. That is one that we've tried out up here in this area. And from the indications we've seen, it's very good for those that are texters.
So what can you text? I'm going to put it in the comments section.
The keyword, you could put home or start. There's many different keywords because that's not really as important, but text it to the number 741-741. And that's the crisis text line. Also, you might want to put in the chat room there that the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255.
Yes, that is scrolling actually, Larry, at the bottom of our screen. Yep.
Okay.
So I pulled it right off Google, and I'm going to put it in the text bar as well in case anybody needs those resources.
And I'm glad you did. And that's what I really appreciate, Haley, is that you see the need right there in your own community.
Absolutely.
To say we need to be addressing this topic. And so today there was many different ways of trying to put this in 20 or 25 minutes because there's so much information.
I know.
But at the same time, I want each person that's on here today to say, okay, I know a little bit more about what's going on, but I also know some things to look for. Absolutely. And some of the things I want us to remember is there are risk factors. There are things that we need to be looking for that says this person is really struggling right now with what's going on. And it can be certain things as they're starting to feel withdrawn, not just being isolated, but when you do see them out and about, they seem like they're fearful. Their personality seems to have changed. One of the key things in suicide prevention that I always try to relay to those that are going through the classes is that any change, question, why are you going through that change? We may see that someone is their personality has changed. Their attitude has changed. We see at school, someone that was doing very well in school now is really struggling with their grades and just with this whole working from home format that a lot of schools are doing. Some schools are starting to open up more and more to let students go back. Boone County, after I think it's next week that they're going to start looking at doing 4 days in-person studies for those that want to be there.
Okay.
There's still a large portion of those that aren't going to be in school because they don't feel safe yet to return to school.
Yeah, Carroll County just started October 12th or 13th, I think. So they were doing in-home schooling until that time. But I know a lot of people, a couple of my friends even decided, we're not ready to send them back, just kind of in fear. So they're deciding to homeschool.
And I think we're going to see that for quite a while to come now until we start seeing some big breakthroughs with this pandemic. We're going to still see a lot of people being in fear, saying, I don't want to subject my child to going back and being exposed to this virus. But we also, as parents, we're concerned that our children they aren't getting that interaction.
Yes.
They're not interacting with friends. And really that weighs on us greatly. We are creatures of relationships.
Absolutely.
We need to be around other people. And this pandemic has caused us to feel like everybody I come in contact with, is it safe to even be around them? Some of the terms that we heard that I think can have an adverse effect on us as our mental health is the one big one we hear quite often: social distancing. The word social distancing sometimes puts in a thought that when you say social, that we're not supposed to even interact, that somehow we got to quit interacting with other people during this time. But if we was to rephrase that to its accurate term, we would say physical distancing. We would say you physically need to be within this 6 feet away from each other, instead of saying socially, because we're putting a negative connotation on the word social and saying I shouldn't be doing that. I know the University of Kentucky, where my oldest daughter is attending currently, she just started her classes this semester for the first time in this environment. They have signs around campus that says physical distancing. They don't use social distancing.
I like that. I never thought of it that way.
And I think that's what I'm glad that you asked me to speak today. If nothing else, it just can change the way we were looking at this, to say, how can we look at this in a way that can be more beneficial for everyone? So when we say asymptomatic, when we're saying people are asymptomatic, they carry COVID-19. It shows positive on tests, but they're not really showing symptoms. Until this pandemic, we never really even heard what that meant. When someone's asymptomatic, we're saying, what does that mean? But now we hear it quite often. Oh, I can carry this virus and not even know it and pass it on to someone else. And yesterday was a prime example of how our mental health has been affected during this pandemic. Yesterday, up here in Boone County, they had a senior fair day. It was a drive-through for seniors. So those that are 60 and over that were looking for resources and things in our community, they were able to go to the Florence Freedom baseball field. Their parking lot was set up as a drive-through, and they could go to past the tables and pick up information, get their flu shots. They could get some other health information.
I love that.
They actually said, we got to do something to help our seniors.
I love that.
We need our
cool.
Who is it that is considered highest risk? The seniors is right at the top.
Yeah.
Those that are the older population, they're struggling right now, being alone and isolated from a lot of family. A lot of family are staying outside their windows instead of going in to talk to them face to face. It seems like there's a divide that has come up with a lot of our seniors. And when we talk about our senior centers, we're closed down. Senior centers aren't able to interact in person. Well, if you have a parent or grandparent that is a senior, or you may be even a senior on this format today, you know that you want to interact. That's so crucial to you. And my wife said she was at the end of this drive-through yesterday at a bus where they were giving out supplies and things. And she said so many people came up to her. And after they realized it was her, the manager at the Burlington Senior Center, she said people were crying and saying, I can't believe it's been forever since I've seen you.
Aww.
And they were very emotional. It was almost like a floodgate opened at the end of this drive-through yesterday, that the seniors that were going through, and by the way, over 500 people went through that drive-through yesterday.
That is so awesome.
They had people backed up all the way to 42, where the ballpark is. If you've ever been to see a Florence Freedom ball game, you know that, okay, if you're in that parking lot and you're backed up all the way to 42, it's pretty good traffic going through there.
Yeah.
And so she said that was what really resonated with her yesterday, is seeing those tears and people just breaking down saying, I'm finally getting to see some of my friends just in passing to say, oh, they're doing okay. They're out and about, even with their mask. And sometimes it's hard to figure out who someone is because all you see is the upper part of their face with their eyes.
Yes.
But so that really brought out, what are some other things that's going on? One of the things I heard this morning as well, substance abuse, opioid overdoses, that it indicated that 40 states have already experienced an increase of overdoses during this time. So when we look at this, one of the things that really stands out to me is, what are a lot of people that are going through addiction struggles? What are they being told? They're told not to be by yourself. If you partake of a drug or you're addicted to something, being alone can be deadly. And I think that's what I think really comes out in this pandemic, is that we're seeing such a spike in that area is because people are alone. And there is an old phrase that the worst enemy many of us can have is me. I can beat myself up better than anybody can beat me up.
You're your own worst critic, that's for sure, in a lot of different cases.
Exactly right. And so I think that's some things when we look at changes, we got to look at those risk factors. We got to say, how can I do something about someone that is really struggling at this time? What are some ways that I can ask them, how are you doing? Are you okay? The QPR training that I do that Haley made reference to at the beginning, it's called Question, Persuade, and Refer. Question, persuade, and refer is ask the question. When your gut instinct says to you, this person may be suicidal, or this person is really struggling just to get through the day, I can tell they're really having a difficult time. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Some people, as depressed as you seem to be, they think about suicide. I'm wondering, are you thinking about suicide right now? If so, we need to help persuade that person to get help. We need to say, hey, the best way to do it is, let's go. I'll go with you to get that help. Do not call and make a counselor appointment if you're suicidal. If you're in a time of crisis, you need to be handled differently than trying to set up an appointment that may be 3 or 4 months down the road before you're able to get in to see that counselor, therapist, psychologist. So you need to go to a place where they can handle crisis. As I mentioned, Sun Behavioral, St. Elizabeth up here in the northern Kentucky. But think about that in your own hometowns. In Carroll County, you got the hospital there. If nothing else, I need to get them over to the hospital and let them say, what do we do? This person is thinking about ending his or her life. The next best thing is saying, okay, I know there's helps out there. Let's work on this together on trying to figure out what those helps are. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the crisis text line. We can also say, you may get a call from someone from Eastern Kentucky, and you're saying, I don't know what your resources are, or if you even have any resources. So promise me that we will work on this together and you will hang in here with me. If you can give that person hope that there may be some way to get out of that hurting, because that's really where the issue is right now with this pandemic. Everything is, we're hurting, we're struggling.
Absolutely.
It can be emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, and it can all be combined. So what we're looking at is, how do we address those issues that's getting you to a point to think that suicide's an option? So I'm going to wrap up here. It looks like we're getting close to our time frame here. Yeah. Time flies by as you get in this topic because there's so much to cover.
It does.
I do want to leave you with a quote. I love quotes. I don't know if you are like me or not, but one of the quotes that I heard, we've already touched on, there was a little comic strip in 1970, 71 area that said, and I'll read this to you. It says, "Oh, Pogo, the beauty of the forest primeval gets me in the heart. It was for Earth Day. when Earth Day was starting. It gets me in the feet porcupine, one character says. It is hard walking on this stuff. And it shows a lot of trash that's on the earth. And then the one little character ends it saying, "Yep, son, we have met this enemy and he is us."
Aww.
And sometimes we look at that and we're saying, if we feel that we're getting out of control and I don't know what to do, I would encourage you right now, whoever's on this format right now, write down 3 people that you would turn to, that someone could say, here's 3 people you respect, that we can reach out to if you ever become suicidal or thinking, I can't go through another day like this, because this pandemic is going on. But know that your mental health is really struggling. Substance abuse is rising. We need to really focus on some of these other things that people are going through and realize that's part of the reality we're in today. And I'm going to leave you with the old saying, we have nothing to fear except fear itself. We have heard that through Franklin Delano Roosevelt. With Franklin D. Roosevelt, he said this in an inaugural speech years ago, but he actually took it from someone else before that. But what we're looking at today is we see that fear of what's going on with this virus and how it's affecting us in our mental health, our substance abuse, and just saying, I feel hopeless. Reach out to those that need help and know that even though we're fighting fear itself and what's going on around us, by you caring, it can and it will make a difference. Thank you.
Absolutely, Larry. Thank you so much for that. To be a topic it can be so sad and depressing. It can be. To be a topic like that, so somber, I think that you are an amazing advocate for suicide prevention, and I love the spin that you put on it. You give hope, and you can really resonate with that, and it's amazing. So thank you. I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you, Haley. And keep smiling. That smile you have is contagious, and your energy, it just radiates to those around you. So don't stop being you, Haley, because you are making a difference.
Well, I appreciate you, and I'm so glad you came on today to talk. I did want to mention to the viewers out there that Larry will have a PowerPoint or some sort of little infographic for us with some of the statistics that he mentioned earlier on in the presentation. We'll get that out at a later time. I'll send it out to the distribution list. And just how the pandemic has kind of shaped how we are now in Kentucky. So also, there's a webinar. I put a link of the webinar that Larry sent me. That's a really good webinar. He brought it forth pretty highly. So it's in there in the comments section as well. And we will talk about doing some sort of drive-through event for Carrollton for outreach and things that, people need to continue social distancing, but still when they need help with something, I think that we should be there for that. So we'll talk about that, Kathy, you and I together, and we'll bring it forward to the committee through email or something like that. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you have any questions, let me know, and we will get with Larry, make sure they get answered. I did want to make sure we didn't miss any questions on here. Just wanted to say thank you again for everyone tuning in. We'll meet again, probably virtually next month as well. We'll have a guest speaker on the 4th Thursday of the month in November. Actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, that will probably be close to Thanksgiving. So we will do the 3rd Thursday of next month. It'll be the 19th. So mark that in your calendars. It'll be at 11:30 as well. I'm pretty sure I mentioned everything. Oh, I will link this video into our distribution list. If anybody missed it live, I'll link it and put it on YouTube as well so that they can go back and view it afterwards. Larry, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I just wanted to see if I can bring it close enough to the camera. Yeah. The state of Mental Health in America 2021. This is from Mental Health America.
Okay.
And if you go on Mental Health America, you can actually print out this copy. It has some great information on mental health, substance abuse, and the COVID-19 pandemic and how it's affecting us. It's called The State of Mental Health in America 2021 from Mental Health America.
Oh, there you go. The State of Mental Health in America.
Yes.
Got it.
So I just came across it this week because it's just been released. So take a look at that. And then the other one would be the National Action Alliance for Suicide Prevention. That is the initiative since 2012 on trying to have zero suicides. That is their initiative, is try to get closer and closer to zero suicides, even though we know that we'll never reach that, but that should always be our goal, to lower that number. And the National Action Alliance for Suicide Prevention and American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is another great resource. AFSP, that Holly Dawson right there in Carrollton is very involved in it. She can answer a lot of questions on that. So you might want.
She just had her suicide walk here in Carroll County.
Yeah.
And it was really successful. I wasn't able to attend this year. I attended last year, but she's always so successful with getting sponsors and donors and just really raising awareness in Carroll County. I think it's amazing.
So I will send that to you, Haley, some information about our presentation today. And I'm sorry that right before I talked to Haley this morning, I hit a button on my computer and it deleted all of my PowerPoints that I was going to do for you guys.
Okay. That's okay, Larry. We'll make sure we get something.
It's been that kind of year.
Yeah, it's been that kind of day. We have technical difficulties all morning, so it's totally fine.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry. Have a great day. And bye, Facebook friends. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye.